Just recently, a free tool was put out online that preppers can leverage in order to harden themselves against food shortage issues due to supply chain disruptions in the future. And the tool I'm referring to is actually called Food Twin, which I thought to be very interesting and I wanted to share with everybody because, like I said, you can access it for free and it gives you a ton of information. So, what is Food Twin? Well, basically, it gives you a digital twin of the US food system and allows you to see where your food is imported from and where the food you produce is sent to based on your county. And that's very beneficial because you can actually map out where disruptions could come from based on what portion of the country might be affected by a natural disaster or other types of events that we all prepare for. Now, before we get into the map, which is actually very cool, I want to go ahead and mention that Midway USA is the biggest supporter of the channel. And of course, thanks to them, I can put out information like this and give you access to free tools that you might not have otherwise known about. So let's get into it. Explore the map. This is where things get really interesting, okay? You can select any county in the United States, and it will tell you what is produced, what is consumed, and where everything comes to or goes to. And I think that's very interesting because you can see here we have LaForce, Louisiana selected as of right now. So for them, they consume all of these different agricultural products from different parts of the country. They're coming from California, as you can see here, North Dakota, they're coming from Texas, Florida, and so you can understand that they have a lot imported into their area. Now, what do they produce? So over here you can see you would be able to search your county, and just to kind of show you an example of that, we'll go with a county that's very close to me here in North Dakota. All right. So there we have Ward County. And you have the entire United States to work with. You can also just click on whatever county you want, which makes it very easy to use. Now, as of right now, we have all of the sourcing counties selected, but you can also just go to top 5 if you want to see where the most of your supply is coming from. But if we go to all, it gives us a better picture as to what parts of the country we're actually getting supplies from. And then if we were to select producer, it shows us what we're producing and where it's going. And as you can see, of course, Ward County, North Dakota is producing a ton of grain, barely any vegetables, and it's sending it mostly towards the East Coast. So, what does this tell you? Why is this data valuable? Well, first off, you would be able to say, okay, if I live in Ward, North Dakota, I clearly have a lot of grain being produced here, which means food is likely to be accessible if something was to be cut off from another place. As you can see, based on the consumer amount versus the producer amount. Now, this is all actually equated in the form of calories, as you can see right here. So calories produced is 51.2 billion, and calories per capita is 2,000 calories a day, which is really good, basically saying that they can produce enough to feed everybody in their area a normal diet. And then consumed is 20.6 billion calories versus 811 per day. So much more calories are being produced than consumed, which tells you quite a bit about how well shielded you are from food shortage disruptions in the future. Now, what else is cool is that this can show you the road network that these imports are coming in from or the exports are leaving from. So you go over here to show road network, you click on that, and now we're actually taking the highway systems that take you into this area. And of course, if you zoom in, you can see that everything is actually organized in that fashion. So zoom back out, okay? And now let's go to producer again. So what does this tell you? Well, this tells me that if any of these major thoroughfares are actually disrupted to some degree based on some sort of SHTF scenario or who knows what else, then you're not going to receive the food that's either coming in or going out of those areas, especially based on the fact that that roadway might be blocked or completely cut off. So you can use this to your advantage for a lot of different data and information. Now, another thing that's very cool, and we'll go ahead and turn off the road mode because I kind of like how it shows just the amount, the quantity that's going to these other counties from a singular county or the quantity that you're receiving versus it having to travel through the roads. This gives you a better visualization of how much is actually coming in versus going out. But you can also simulate stress conditions, which you go over here and we have drought conditions. It kind of shows like if there was a really bad nationwide drought, how much less imports would be coming your way and how fewer exports would be heading out of your area. But we also have heat stress, which we can do too, which kind of shows, okay, more exports are coming out, but how are we doing for consumption? And of course, you can see heat stress is going to affect this area of the southeast much more. So if we go down here, let's say to, we'll just go to Morgan, Georgia. Now, down here, you can see their consumption is very much slowed down versus if the heat stress wasn't there. So let's go ahead and unclick that. Way more consumption coming through. Add in the heat stress. Things are slowing down. And what are they producing? Barely anything, mostly grain. And then during a drought, it's all the same, right? So it gives you some of that kind of climate-related supply chain disruption stuff to pay attention to. But in reality, I really think it's important for knowing where your food's coming from. So if you're on the East Coast, right? This is from Kidder, North Dakota. So Kidder is supplying a ton of grain and a lot of vegetables to the entire East Coast, as you can see, to all these different counties. Now, if we were to select how much it's consuming, it's barely anything in comparison. So if Kidder gets cut off, it will probably be fine. But if you're on the East Coast, you're suddenly going to have a huge amount of disruption. So if a huge portion of the country is affected by some kind of, I don't know, cataclysmic event, or if it's affected by the logistics and shipping system going down, then you know what to expect or anticipate based on where this area is. So, for example, let's go over here to San Mateo, California, right? There could be a lot of earthquake activity there. They're not really producing a whole lot, so not a big deal, but they're consuming a ton. So if they can't receive what's being consumed, they're in big trouble. Versus, let's see if we go to a bigger producer, maybe down here, let's see, Kern County, California, for example, okay? They actually produce quite a bit. They send food everywhere. Look at all these counties that are being sent food from Kern County, California. Well, if a major earthquake happens in California and cuts off Kern County's ability to export food, all these places are going to be affected versus how much they consume, which is much less. Lots of grain coming from the Dakotas, of course, and then we also have Oregon sending in vegetables, but that's about it. Everything else is within California for them. So they're insulated from that issue occurring, but if they were to be affected from being able to actually export their products, now you know if you're in any of this part of the United States that you're going to be affected by some degree, especially where these really large branches of supplies are going, and we have, fruits, vegetables, nuts, grain, tubers. They supply everything all over the country. And of course, if we show the road network, look how much of that then is compacted down to these individual networks of highways. And if we zoom in here, you can see that that's a ton of products suddenly forced onto these small avenues of traffic. And if you go ahead and shut that off once again, all of that is being compressed down into these tiny roadways. So now you know, okay, I need to look at what roadways these would be, and then I need to plan for if that highway were to be shut down or affected in some kind of cataclysmic way, because now all that food is being shut off from the rest of the country. And of course, this county in particular provides a lot for the entire country. So this is an awesome tool. I want to go ahead and put a link for it in the description as well as in the pinned comment. I thought this was something worth sharing with everybody because it's brand new, and I'm sure most of you have no idea it even exists, and it's very hard to find. I had to do a lot of digging in order to pull this up and kind of demonstrate it and actually play around with it. It wasn't easy just to type in food twin and then find it. So I will have the links for you in the description, the pinned comment. Anything else you need from me, go to magicprepper.com. I highly suggest you check this out because it can show you how well insulated or how easily affected you would be by a national supply chain disruption, especially related to food, which is what this is specifically covering. And honestly, I'm really impressed with this. I think it's a very good tool for us to have. Of course, this is more designed for the agricultural industry as well as those who are in emergency management planning, but we can benefit from that as preppers, and I think that this tool can actually provide you with a lot of data. Anything else you need from me? magicprepper.com, and besides that, it's going to be it for Magic Prepper.